Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 8th. I'm Shane Seeley, and this is the CBC Morning Report. We do apologize for the delayed start. Looking at what is leading our news this morning, are Barbadians ready for an earthquake if it were to occur on island? Well, the Department of Emergency Management is giving Barbadians a passing grade for their participation and execution during the recently held National Earthquake Preparedness Day drop, cover, and hold drill last Friday. Now, the early assessment is coming from DEM consultant Shanice Fort, who's been spearheading the initiative. Here's what she had to say.
Friday's activity was generally a success. We got a lot of messages and videos from persons who would have participated in the National Earthquake Preparedness Day drop, cover, hold drill. We even participated in the activity at our office at the Department of Emergency Management. Barbadians are definitely understanding the importance of being prepared for an earthquake. In recent times, we have been receiving more and more requests for presentations to different groups about the earthquake and tsunami hazards. And typically, we would only get such requests about hurricanes. So it is definitely good to see that Barbadians are becoming more curious about how to be prepared for earthquakes and just knowing what to do in general.
And while the DEM official is pleased with the increased participation, she says there's still more work to be done.
The Department of Emergency Management will continue its public awareness campaign on earthquakes throughout the rest of this year. We also try to think of innovative ways to reach various demographics. Coming up in November would be World Tsunami Awareness Day, which is observed on November 5th. And closer to that date, you can stay tuned to our social media channels to find out exactly what we would be doing to observe that day.
And for more information on how you can be prepared, you can go to www.dem.gov.bb. We'll take a break here and come back with COVID-19 updates, and we will also be looking at the situation in Russia. Before we get to the Russia-Ukraine debacle happening in Eastern Europe, let's look at what is happening with COVID-19 here in Barbados and the region. And the Pan American Health Organization is confident that though it's that through its digital promotion of COVID-19 vaccines, the uptake rate will reach 70% in the Caribbean by June 30th. Thanks to a joint initiative between PAHO and the WHO, Trend Media and International Telecommunications Union, over the last 5 months, a mass communication campaign leveraging mobile technology has been targeting Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada and St. Lucia, and the vaccine uptake in the Eastern Caribbean rose from an average of 29% in October 2021 to 41% by January this year. Dr. Etiris Givre, who is the PAHO WHO representative for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, told a press conference at the Accra Beach Hotel, which examined the reach of the campaign, which sent 2 million SMS messages and reached 160,000 people through messages and videos, that the gap is closing and they are happy with the work of their partners. He said they're working on achieving higher vaccine uptake targets.
We have to do more, not only government to provide vaccination, but the private sector as well. In this perspective, our work would have showed whether the countries in the Eastern Caribbean would reach the 70% by June 2022. The next slides would show you the gap between now and June for at least few of the Eastern Caribbean countries, which may not be able to attain that 70%. Why 70%? Next one. 70% is a data which we are using as a proxy for herd immunity.
The PAHO WHO representative says the target is possible given that governments and ministries of health have changed their plans to get vaccine uptake at a higher volume.
They have refined those country development and rollout plans as the time goes by, looking at the weaknesses they may have, the situation analysis. As you heard from Dr. Silly Thomas, about what Antigua has done. Similarly, all countries in the Eastern Caribbean have made adjustment to their plans. The only thing which is now holding back to achieve the 70% is that the recipient of these vaccines. The vaccine hesitancy, as we mentioned, as high as 25%, 30% in some countries.
The government of Guyana is moving quickly to reduce the time spent for processing visitors through the country's airports. President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali told a press conference the measures were in effect to control the spread of COVID-19 and had caused significant delays in recent time.
Government, through the National COVID-19 Task Force, will be advancing this week more changes to accelerate the path for full reopening of the country. This was disclosed by President Irfan Ali during a media conference on Sunday. For instance, he said the COVID-19 passenger locator form, which was implemented at ports of entry due to the COVID pandemic, is no longer necessary.
All of this was necessary because of COVID, but we have to navigate now into the future. So that form, that locator form, is no longer needed because the immigration form captures all the information that is required on that form. So, which means that when you come in now, you'll be advancing straight to immigration.
Over in Jamaica now, the full resumption of in-person learning has resulted in students there being given a new railway schedule to make transportation more convenient. This information was disclosed during a standing finance committee session in the House of Representatives. TVJ has the details.
The Jamaica Railway Corporation is projected to earn $296.98 million in the 2022-2023 fiscal year. $30.27 million of that figure is expected to come from train fares and charges. But projections also show the entity will rack up over $40 million in losses. In responding to queries from opposition spokesman on transport Michael Phillips, Portfolio Minister Audishaw says a plan is in place to increase train services. Under Phase 1, services are being offered to students.
The second phase is going to be for the the opening up of the Montego Bay to Appleton Estate as a tourist attraction. And then the third phase will be to reopen from Montego Bay to Kingston. And thereafter looking at other important potential routes like Port Antonio, St. Thomas, and so on.
Meanwhile, starting tomorrow, the Jamaica Railway Corporation will roll out a new schedule for the student train service to coincide with the full resumption of face-to-face classes. Under the new schedule, the Old Harbour train will depart the station at 6:40 a.m., arriving in Spanish Town at 7:12 a.m., following stops in Bushy Park and Heartlands. In the afternoon, it will leave Spanish Town at 4:10 p.m. and arrive in Old Harbour at 4:45 p.m. The Linstead train will depart Charlemont at 6:25 a.m., making stops in Linstead and Bogwalk before arriving in Spanish Town at 7:15 a.m. In the afternoon, it will leave the Spanish Town station at 3:55 p.m., making stops in Bogwalk, Linstead and Charlemont before returning to Linstead at 4:55 p.m. Students are being asked to arrive at the respective train stations at least 15 minutes before departure.
Eyes on the Russian invasion of Ukraine now, and efforts to safely evacuate civilians from areas targeted by the Russian military strikes have been mostly unsuccessful, as both Russian and Ukrainian authorities blame each other for the failure. The United Nations Refugee Agency is now reporting hundreds of civilian deaths since the conflict began. Let's take a look.
These Ukrainians boarding a ferry to cross into Romania are facing a future they never imagined. Many have been living in bombed-out towns in the freezing cold without heat, light, and water. Now they hope they'll be safe. But the fighting is preventing many from reaching safety through humanitarian corridors. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian forces are targeting civilians, despite promises of a ceasefire in several areas of the country. President Vladimir Putin says the Ukrainians are sabotaging Russia's efforts to evacuate people.
6 humanitarian corridors have been opened from Mariupol. Detailed information about these routes were given well in advance to the OSCE, the Red Cross and to the Ukrainians. Russian forces will be monitoring them 24/7.
In the capital, Kyiv, there is resolve, preparation.
I'm carrying out my duty working for my country, thanking our soldiers. That's why I'm here, and I'm very proud of it.
And clarity about the violence to come.
Every house, every street, every checkpoint, we will fight to the death if necessary. No one wants to die, but if necessary, we will protect most of all our children, our families.
There is now a 65-kilometer-long convoy of Russian tanks and armored vehicles, making a steady approach towards the capital amid fierce Ukrainian resistance.
We do have indications that this operation would be unsustainable within about 3 weeks from the Russian perspective, in which case that they would have to consolidate the gains already made and look to see a way of trying to freeze the conflict on the current lines of advance.
There are concerns whether a ceasefire declared by Russia can hold to allow more civilians to escape. The UN Refugee Agency says hundreds of civilians have been killed. 6 healthcare workers have also died, according to the World Health Organization. But the number of deaths are sure to rise.
It's a real worrying situation there over in Ukraine. We'll continue to update you right here on the Morning Report. Let's go over to Wendy now to hear what's happening on today's edition of Morning Barbados.
Well, good morning to you, Shane. It's all things women, ladies today. Why? We're celebrating International Women's Day. And we'll be having a number of guests along to talk to you about some of those things and how women are actually making action happen and how gender equality today will present for a sustainable tomorrow. We'll be having Dr. Halima Deschamps. She is from the UWI Gender Studies Department, a senior lecturer and head there. We'll also be hearing from the UN with Miss Tawny Broadber. She's the representative of UN Women Multi-Country Office, and also the Duke of Edinburgh. A number of young women who've gone through their program will tell us all about what it has done in their lives. So we'll have information on these stories and more ahead in Morning Barbados.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Coming up, you'll get an update on what happened over the weekend with BIF 2022 as it returned to in-person viewing, and we have a lot more news coming your way right here on the Morning Report. The Wall Garden Theatre at the Barbados Museum came alive for the first time since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, when the Barbados Independent Film Festival, BIF, returned for its first in-person viewing of the event. One of the founders, Sir Trevor Carmichael, says the festival, now in its 5th year, has been successful in fulfilling its mandate for entertainment and also education. He told film lovers a collaboration grant, the pairing of an experienced foreign filmmaker with a local one, has been magnificent for the industry and for efforts here in Barbados. The product of this year's collaboration is a film called Walk Up.
I assure you, Walk Up is a film with a difference, not only in movement, but it is a difference in movement, as you will see. Both of the filmmakers, Experience and Junior, Aaron Paris and Sana Alsop, the senior from Parachute Studios, are from Barbados. And it is the first time that we have had 2 female filmmakers paired together.
Senator John King, the former Minister of Culture, was also full of praise for this year's festival, noting that the organizers being able to host the event this year is nothing short of amazing. He says he's looking forward to the film industry's growth.
You know, film is one of those things that attracts a lot of attention. Festivals attract people from all over the world, and as this one grows, I expect to see more and more, not just filmmakers, but people who love film to come to it. But also the films themselves, once they get out into the international market and people can see our stories and see the beauty of this country, I'm sure that in itself will also pull a lot of people to Barbados.
And Canadian actor and filmmaker Anthony Sherwood was honored at this year's event. His film, Honor Before Glory, screened on the opening night, has been praised for shedding light on an important part of Barbados' history. Mr. Sherwood says it highlights in a docudrama format Barbados' role in the experiences of Canada's only all-black military battalion formed in the First World War.
I discovered recently that there were 42 men from Barbados who were part of this historic battalion. I'm here to show my film and to introduce the Barbados audience to this amazing story that not too many people know about, and to introduce them to these 42 brave Barbados men who came up to Canada to fight with Canada in this all-black military battalion.
There's a view that Barbados should become a center of excellence for research and development in agriculture. The Minister of Agriculture, Food and Nutritional Security, Indar Weir, was making that call during a meeting with his Ghanaian counterpart. The minister says the industry in Barbados stands to benefit from synergies that exist between the two countries.
We will leverage whatever opportunities are available between us and Ghana to be able to help with the training that is required in Barbados, and at the same time exchange our knowledge with them as well, and then use whatever space they may be able to create for us to boost agriculture in Barbados.
Now let's go to sports as the Windies gear up to face England later this morning in the Apex Test Series in Antigua. Head coach Phil Simmons is confident his charges are ready for the task ahead. Many say on paper the teams are pretty even in talent. So what then is required for the Windies to come out victorious?
I think one of the things that will play a part is how well the two all-rounders cancel out each other, as in Stokes and Jason. And the other part is how well the two captains bat, or how well the opposing team can restrict the opposing captain. So I think that's going to be two big factors in this. The last time England were here and we beat England, the opening pair was Craig and John Campbell. So let's hope that's a good omen for us because they're back together and they gave the team some good starts. So that's what we've been talking about, getting a good start and making sure that the top four put things together and not leave it for the, as you said, middle and lower order.
The series is a crucial one for the Windies, which is looking to maintain a decades-long domination of their opponents on home soil.
The series is important for West Indies cricket. The series is important for this cricket team and for us as a unit in the way how we play the cricket and to win the series. It's important so that we can start. I mean, this is the first test series in the year and we want to start the year on a strong note. So it's very important for that. The guys seem to be extremely confident. I think we had a camp about 5 days where we worked on different things. So coming out of that and looking at the last couple of days practice, the guys seem extremely confident and they're all looking forward to it. I think it's a case where everybody today was happy that practice is over and everything and they're ready to start tomorrow.
And that's sports, and that action will be live on ESPN. That's channel 308 on MCTV. Time now for a look at the weather. The temperature right now is 25.7 degrees Celsius. It's cloudy and slightly hazy on the outside. Relative humidity stands at 68%, so there has been some drying out of the atmosphere. The barometric pressure is 1012.1 millibars, and those winds are coming out of the east at 28 kilometers per hour. There will be a high tide at 12 minutes past 7 this morning. There will be a low tide in the afternoon at 5 minutes to 2. Those seas are still moderate to rough in open water. Swells are peaking around the 3-meter mark but expected to decrease. We'll have a mix of sunshine and clouds here in Barbados today with occasional scattered light showers. And tonight it will be a mix of clear skies and clouds with a few brief scattered light showers. And here's a look at the international weather forecast. That's it for this Tuesday, March 8th edition of the Morning Report. I'm Shane Seeley. I'll see you at 7 with your headline news. Up next, Wendy Burke with Mornin Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
A bright, sunny morning to you. Forget all about that haze on the outside. Just put a smile on and it will be a sunshiny day for you. Now, I want to wish all women, and I'm going to add 2 extra L's to that this morning, all women a happy International Women's Day. We know our roles, we know our priorities, we know our purpose. So let's fulfill it today as best we can. Regardless of your profession, know that you are worthy, you are worthwhile, and this society needs you to get through. So women, take your place, not only today on International Women's Day, but always. And CBC will be having some programming today, we had some last night, to celebrate women. We're celebrating all of our women, young, old, or teenagers. Everyone today will be celebrated for their roles. The professional women, the academic women, all of us have our role to play in fulfilling this society's development. Now this morning we're going to be telling you about a number of different things that are going to be taking place for International Women's Day. And as opposed to having a lecture, there are going to be some discussions where as individuals we can weigh in on what we feel some of the issues are. Yes, we will have the panelists presenting their viewpoints, but we'll be available to tune in through Zoom and use the technology to have a say on exactly how we feel about the role that women have to play in making a sustainable tomorrow. Now that sustainability not only speaks to our environmental issues, but it also speaks to how we sustain ourselves as individuals, how we sustain ourselves economically, and even more importantly, how we sustain our children, because as women, we still have that role, and you know, we want to see them fulfill it. All of them don't have to, so don't ever think that because you're a woman, you have to feel pressured to have children or what have you. Remember, celebrate you as a woman. Now we're gonna have our guest this morning, and her name is Miss Tawny Broadber. She is the representative of UN Women for the Multi-Country Office in the Caribbean. Good morning to you, Ms. Broadber.
Good morning and a happy International Women's Day to you.
Yes, I'm celebrating from the time I got up at the crack of dawn, and I will be doing it until a minute to midnight tonight and thereafter, because we all have to celebrate womanhood. Now, the theme this year from the UN is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. Unpack that for me.
So the theme speaks to the fact that we recognize, without acknowledging the different ways in which women and men are impacted by the impacts of climate change, the different ways in which we have to understand how some historical barriers still exist, preventing women from fully contributing to their communities, we will not be able to have a sustainable tomorrow. So we need to act now for gender equality today so that we have a sustainable tomorrow.
Now, in terms of the climate crisis that we're facing right now, we can't consider it necessarily gender neutral because the women and girls around the world are far more affected and even at a more alarming rate than our men.
Yeah, I think so. So this is why we always say we have to use a gender lens. We need to be very analytical in when we see some of the data. Now, when there was the tsunami in Southeast Asia in 2004, I believe, some time ago, it was very clear because of the way in which their societies worked, women were the most affected. They were at home, they didn't hear the news, they wore very heavy clothes, and they were the majority of those who died in that particular hazard event. Now, for the Caribbean, we have a different circumstance, whether it is an environmental hazard like a hurricane or flooding, or a health environmental hazard like COVID-19. Depending on where you find women and men in our societies, they're going to be impacted differently. Many women are responsible for what we call unpaid childcare. We know during COVID-19 who was responsible for the at-home schooling, who was responsible also for the cooking. Many of our households are single-headed households. And so that created an additional responsibility on women that sometimes became very, very difficult to manage. In addition, many women, where they are in our economies, are in the tourism sector, in the services sector, and in the jobs that are often most cut when those sectors go through a very difficult economic period. And so that affects their livelihoods and that of their children as well. What's interesting is that our men are affected in different ways, valid ways that we have to address as well when it comes to these kinds of hazards in terms of mental and emotional well-being. And in the aftermath of Ivan, which again was some time ago, but what was found was that because, again, gender inequality, women were expected to take care of children, and some men had many children with many women. When it came time to help elderly parents, children focused on giving their mothers their supports because the mothers were the ones that invested in them. And that meant that the indigent poor were older men. And so gender inequality benefits no one. It benefits men poorly, it benefits women poorly, because at the end of the day, we all want to be supported by those around us. And if we aren't available, if we think that, no, that's a woman's job, then you don't benefit as well from being cared for by your community in the same ways when you get older.
I'm glad you mentioned the issue of women's job and spoke to the issue of female-headed households. It was a little debate I had yesterday with a friend, and he was saying that the reason that they're single mothers heading is because that's the route we've chosen. We want to show our strength as women, we want to become career professionals, and therefore we have opted to be in that place. How do you respond to arguments like that?
Well, first of all, I really enjoy the conversation because I like to hear what people really think rather than what their representatives think we should think, if you understand what I mean. I don't agree with your friend. If you speak to any woman, any person, but especially women, we've been socialized to, and we want to be loved. We want to be in relationships. However, those relationships look, we want to be loved, we want the support. And many women, not all women, but many women do want to have children. You want your child to know the love of both parents. You also want to be able to contribute your skills in the formal economy. Many times you've paid a lot of money to go to school, or you spent a lot of time going to school. In countries like Barbados, you at least have government support, so you don't necessarily have to go into complete debt to do so. But you want to be able to contribute in your workplace as well. And why not? You know, McKinsey demonstrates that if we close that gap between women and men, we'd be looking at $34 trillion being added to the global economy. So we really need to understand that having space for women to be in the public and formal space, contributing to their communities, their countries, should not be at odds with them also being able to have a caring, loving relationship with their children and having their children's fathers being engaged in their children's lives. I think, unfortunately, it's very easy for us to look and put blame on the parent that remains, we don't need to look at blame. We need to address accountability and responsibility and saying, if you have given life to a child in any way, you should be engaged in that child's life. They need both their mothers and their fathers.
Hear, hear. Because unfortunately, that's something that we in the Caribbean tend to do. I don't know if I can refer to it as historical or cultural, but as long as that relationship dissolves, the male, unfortunately, most times seems to think that their relationship, the child, dissolves as well. And that's unfortunate, but we women step up. Let's look now at where we are and how we're progressing in terms of leadership positions, change makers, you know, becoming entrepreneurs, helping to redefine the roles that we have been assigned in our society. Let's start maybe to unpack a few key sectors: women in agriculture, women in finance.
So before we go there, sorry, just something has got me with this, because I'm sure you've seen in the paper in Barbados as well, there's a lot of news about women and fathers and parenting. I do want to say that it is important as well when fathers involved, that they're involved in a healthy way. If you are being violent towards the mother of your child, if you are being threatening towards the mother of your child, you require psychosocial support before you're engaged, because children should not be used as pawns, and we need healthy parenting of children. So let's get to the industries. We have a lot of women in the Caribbean for a very long time in agriculture. I remember a few years ago doing a workshop and asking people to draw a farmer, because we asked people to challenge their gender stereotypes, and everybody drew a man. And I said, well, what about women? And one of the men was coming at me very hard and saying, why everything have to be a woman thing? I said, well, everything doesn't have to be a woman thing, but do you not know any women who are farmers? And a few minutes into the conversation, he started to laugh, and he leaned back and he said, you know, my mother's a farmer. And I said, but I'm very confused. Why were you pushing back so hard? And he said, I just thought that's what she did. I didn't think that was a job. So she grew things and sold them, but she wasn't a farmer. And that's how we look at, unfortunately, at women's work. UN Women, FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, UNDP and ILO have been partnering through the Human Security Trust Fund to work with farmers across the Caribbean. And in Barbados, we provided them with business coaching. So at least 30 women and 10 men were able to benefit, so that they understood, look at yourself as a micro-entrepreneur, and how can you build this business? Because many of our farmers are smaller scale farmers, but that doesn't mean that they can't scale. They can't collaborate. They can't look at cooperatives. So this is what that business coach did with them. We also need more women in finance. We need more people in finance from across different socioeconomic classes, and we also need more women in finance. This is where the money is in our communities. And too many of us, one, don't understand how the stock exchange works. Two, don't really understand how the financial world works. But this is really where the decisions are made. This is where a lot of power lies. So encouraging more women, more people from different socioeconomic classes to have an understanding of accounting, business, how finance works in particular, is critical, so that we can have a more diverse and more financial products, a diverse framework and environment within that space, and more financial products that are accessible and useful to all in society. So one of the things that struck me is that with all the education I was able to benefit from, I was privileged to benefit from, I learned about the stock market late in my 20s, trying to understand how are people making money without working directly. It is different. And that's something I think we all need to be aware of. And we need more women in finance. It has been shown that it is good for business. The companies that are intentional about getting women into financial positions, and not just in finance, but in business broadly, have been shown to have higher profits. That's because diversity benefits us all.
Now, do you think we as women are doing enough for each other in terms of the women who have risen close to what we refer to as the glass ceiling versus those who might still be in what some might consider as menial labor? For me, no labor is menial. As long as you're working honest, you're working. Do you think we are helping and doing enough to uplift each other? I know the UN is doing its work, but we as women within the Caribbean, are we doing sufficient?
So here's what I'll say. Before I get to what we're doing, if we look at the ways in which gender inequality affects our community, we have the ideological side, right? What do we think about women? Do we think women are as valuable as men? What are our beliefs about women and men? That's one thing for us to think about. Then we have the institutional. Are we doing enough in our institutions to remove the barriers? I do remember Dame Billy Miller talking once about the first time she went to Parliament and then having to even figure out where she should use the bathroom because institutions didn't even think about what it was like to have women in there.
Yeah.
Now, in the interpersonal, interrelational, how we treat one another, I think we have to look at the ways in which women are not homogenous. We have race, class, ethnicity, ability, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity. There are different things that creates each person's identity around womanhood. And I do think there's more that we can all be doing for one another. Yes, we should be looking, especially through the lens of socioeconomic class. How do we treat people that we think are doing that work that you think that you've outlined is not as worthy as other work? How do you treat your housekeeper? How do you treat the women who are doing that extremely important work of keeping our space clean, the invisible work? You see things clean and you say, oh, that's lovely. Who made it clean? How are you treating other women in your life? And why? Is it something that you've internalized about womanhood, that you can't trust other women? These are the things that we need to do work to empower one another on. But I do want to say, I think a lot of women, look at our civil society organizations, a lot of women support one another. A lot of women create opportunities for one another. I think it is a small portion of people who are not yet where they need to be security-wise on this. And I think also we need to talk about how men as well need to be looking at women, supporting women. There's enough space for all of us to thrive.
It's a large world. I want to thank you so much, Tawny Broadbear, for joining us this morning here. And I wish the UN Women's all the success in whatever you do today through your online platforms. And again, happy International Women's Day to you and all the ladies in your office. Do have a wonderful morning.
Thank you so much. Same to you. And colleagues can join us at noon today for another conversation on climate change and finance online.
Okay, have a great one. Morning Barbados will be back after the break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And welcome back to Morning Barbados. As we said, it is International Women's Day, and the conversation continues. The theme is Gender Equality Today for Sustainable Tomorrow. Joining me now is Dr. Halima Deschamps. She is the Senior Lecturer and Head of the Institute for Gender Development Studies at the Nitobara UWI. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Wendy, and happy International Women's Day to you and to all the women in Barbados, the Caribbean, and the wider world.
And same to you. Now, you all are going to be having not a lecture, but a discussion on gender equality tonight live in CIBC's First Caribbean's page. Now, tell me how that partnership, first of all, came about between the UWI and CIBC, because they have been on board with you in this cause for a while.
Absolutely, and I really want to take this opportunity to recognize the foresight and the commitment of CIBC First Caribbean on the empowerment of women, the leadership of women, and on gender equality. And several years ago, they approached us about supporting our International Women's Day activities, and we have a distinguished lecture series, and we've had several outstanding women in Barbados and the Caribbean actually speak at that series. So we've had the former Minister Elizabeth Thompson, we've had the Governor General of Trinidad and Tobago, and several other women who have been outstanding in their own right in terms of leadership. And last year, with the onset of the pandemic and the mitigation measures we've had to undertake, we sort of transferred it into a sort of high-level moderated conversation. This year, we are sticking with that theme, and we are having a high-level moderated conversation on the theme of gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. So we really want to use this opportunity to celebrate with CIBC First Caribbean. They themselves practice what they preach in terms of their leadership. We know that the CEO of CIBC First Caribbean is Ms. Colette Delaney, and we really just want to thank CIBC for sticking with us, and we look forward to deepening the relationship going forward with CIBC First Caribbean.
Okay, now your panelists, because we're talking sustainable development, and one of them is going to be the head of CDIMA, the Executive Director, Elizabeth Riley. Tell me a bit about some of the other people on that panel and what are the areas they'll be addressing.
Yes. So I want to say that, you know, it is of much note that Elizabeth Riley is the first female executive director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. And she was appointed last year, July, and we want to celebrate to publicly recognize her and to publicly recognize the significance of having women's leadership on issues related to climate and disaster risk resilience. She has a wealth of experience and knowledge in the area, and she has been instrumental in a lot of the work that we've seen in the past few months to address the issue. So we want to recognize her. We also will be having joining us a very dynamic young woman leader coming out of St. Lucia. Her name is Carew, and she is actually a rural woman, and the first. She's an advocate, a change maker in the fields of gender equity. She's an award-winning young woman, and she focuses the organization she founded and is president of is called Helen's Daughter. And they focus on the economic empowerment of rural women, particularly women in agriculture. You would have heard Tony earlier talk about the inequities in agriculture, how sometimes women are positioned, and the fact that women often lack access to subsidies, even though they constitute a significant proportion of farmers. They tend to own smaller farms, and they tend to not be able to access resources of the state. So really having that cross-generational conversation between Elizabeth Riley and Carew is significant to kind of anchor us in what we mean when we talk about gender equality and sustainability, and how this links to the kind of rapid changes we are seeing in climate, what the implications are for food security, and what the implications are for economic justice for women in particular. Okay. Moderating that conversation is Dr. Tanya Haynes, lecturer in the Institute for Gender and Development Studies. And she is a dynamic academic herself who has a range of experience in the area. So she'll be moderating the conversation between Keeplin Carew and Elizabeth Riley.
Okay, and how can the public get to be a part of the conversation thereafter?
Mm-hmm. So just to let you know that, we are really grateful to be partnering again with CBC, been amazing in helping us to anchor this session, and our partners at the university, UETV, has also been instrumental in organizing and getting things together in this sort of hybrid environment we currently find ourselves in. So we are inviting the public to join us online today at 7 o'clock for the live conversation, and the conversation will be aired again on CBC tomorrow at 9 p.m. So there are two ways in which to engage, and we would love to have you join us online with as part of the online audience to be part of that conversation, and then to have it viewed on CBC tomorrow at 9.
Yes. Now, there are also going to be some performances interspersed in it. Tell us what Vibestry is all about.
So, an amazing, dynamic, young group of musicians led by an all-female band, 5 of them, 5 women on guitar, keyboards, drums, etc. And then, of course, the lead vocalist is also a woman. And we have to really thank Dr. Stefan Walcott, who has been doing amazing work with young musicians in Barbados. Stefan has been working with this group of young women, and we're looking forward to have them wow you. They'll be doing a piece for us before the conversation actually begins, and then we'll close with Vibestry at the end. So we really want to thank them, and we're excited by the potential of what they have to offer for us tomorrow.
Okay, now the Gender Studies Department does a lot of work, a lot of research into where we are at as women. Based on some of your recent studies, what is it saying about us as women in the Caribbean?
Okay, so I kind of want to bring it back to this year's theme. I have colleagues, Dr. Daniel Bob and Leanne Worrell, who have been working in particular on the ways in which the current health crisis has amplified gendered inequality. So, for instance, one of the things we recognize with the onset of the global pandemic is that a number of mitigation measures had to be put in place. Morning. Fallout may have been for those mitigation methods. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Apologies for that.
Yes, no problem.
Right. You were saying that the health crisis it's been amplifying certain things with women, yes?
Absolutely. Because we can imagine whenever there's crisis, an extreme weather event, or in the case of the global pandemic, those who were made most vulnerable in the first place are going to be most severely affected. So we see the shifts in the care economy, for instance, the ways in which the burden of care has been amplified for women, and how this affects their ability to participate in labor market, to access information, etc. And we see global studies which show, for instance, that when we have extreme weather events, women are 14 more times likely to die. Women are the ones accessing shelters. If we begin to look at the preliminary results coming out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for instance, following the explosive volcanic eruption, we are seeing the ways in which the majority of persons accessing shelters are women and children. And the ways in which, for instance, with the onset of natural disasters, you see the amplification, again, of gender-based violence affecting mostly women and girls. We take it to school and education, for instance. We see the increase in teenage pregnancy being reported out of countries like Jamaica and elsewhere, but we also see the ways in which girls are far less likely to return to school after long periods of school closures, and they're far more exposed to experiencing sexual and gender-based violence. And these patterns are repeating themselves in the Caribbean, and they're patterns that are cause for concern. But I also want to say that where you see women's leadership on these issues, leadership in terms of planning for COVID mitigation methods, leadership in terms of climate adaptation measures, we're seeing far better outcomes. But we need to amplify where we see women parliamentarians, for instance, are involved with in environmental ministries, in climate adaptation planning. You're seeing different kinds of outcomes because where women are involved, information is far more likely to be disseminated and the resources are far more likely to be shared. So those are some of the analyses that we are picking up on from the Institute for Gender and Development Studies. And we also have to ensure that the planning and the actions that we take in here gender responsive actions and planning. We have to ensure that gender justice is anchored as a central goal that we all want to achieve when we are thinking about climate adaptation, disaster risk resilience, and so on. And both Elizabeth and Caitlin are going to be able to take us through some of the gender analyses necessary for us to understand the importance of women's full and equal participation and leadership in sort of resilience and sustainability planning for climate,
Yes.
for the economy, for health, etc.
And for life. I want to thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Deschamps, Dr. Halima Deschamps. She is the senior lecturer and head of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies at Nita Barrow, UWI.
Thank you so much for having me, and
happy International Women's Day.
Take care.
On Morning Barbados, we'll now get to news with Shane Seeley.
Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, I'm Shane Seeley with your headline news. An appeal this morning for the urgent removal of trade barriers between the Caribbean and Africa to facilitate a greater level of economic integration. It is coming from the Prime Minister, Mia Motley, who is currently on a working trip to Ghana. She made the call during a panel discussion for a Ghana-Barbados Business Roundtable hosted by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center.
Our mission must be to remove the middle passage, to remove the middleman, and to remove the middle leg. There is no real justification whatsoever for there not being direct trading routes and direct travel routes between Africa and the Caribbean. How do you populate a region for centuries with forcible removal of your families, and then we accept that we must go north again to go on the route that we went directly in bondage to. Defies not just common sense, it undermines the pride that we have in ourselves. Because if we have a strong sense of who we are, then we must start to claim our destiny. And that is why at the start of our election as a government in 2018, we made it clear that we have come to reclaim our Atlantic destiny.
Back at home now, early assessments indicate Barbadians are better prepared to respond in an event of an earthquake. That's according to reports from the Department of Emergency Management in its analysis of Friday's response to the National Earthquake Preparedness Day Drop Cover Hold Drill, where scores of Barbadians took part in an exercise simulating an earthquake. In giving Barbadians a passing grade, DEM consultant Shanice Fort is of the view that more people here are aware and know how to respond to this type of natural disaster and are cognizant that earthquakes are a reality for Barbados and the region.
Friday's activity was generally a success. We got a lot of messages and videos from persons who would have participated in the National Earthquake Preparedness Day Drop Cover Hold Drill. We even participated in the activity at our office at the Department of Emergency Management. Barbadians are definitely understanding the importance of being prepared for an earthquake. In recent times, we have been receiving more and more requests for presentations to different groups about the earthquake and tsunami hazards. And typically, we would only get such requests about hurricanes. So it is definitely good to see that Barbadians are becoming more curious about how to be prepared for earthquakes and just knowing what to do in general.
Barbados has recorded another COVID-19 related death. This is according to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. It notes that a 78-year-old woman passed away on March 6 as a result of having contracted the viral illness. She was unvaccinated. This has taken the number of COVID-19 casualties here in Barbados to 322. And finally, in our news this morning, the Pan American Health Organization is confident that through its digital promotion of COVID-19 vaccines, the uptake rate will reach 70% in the Caribbean by June 30th. Looking at the statistics, and thanks to a joint initiative between PAHO and the WHO, Trend Media and International Telecommunications Union, over the last 5 months, a mass communications campaign leveraging mobile technology has been targeting Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada and St. Lucia, and the vaccine uptake in the Eastern Caribbean rose from an average of 29% in October 2021 to 41% by January 2022. Dr. Yatadis Gibre, the PAHO WHO representative for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, told the press conference at the Accra Beach Hotel, which examined the reach of the campaign, which sent 2 million SMS messages and reached 160,000 people through messages and videos, that the gap is closing and they are and they are happy with the work of their partners. He said they are working on achieving higher vaccine target uptakes. And that's where we end our headline news for today. Let's go back to Wendy after the break for more on Morning Barbados. We'll take a break here and be right back.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And good morning and welcome back. We are going to be looking at agriculture this morning, and the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation are going to be telling us all about their Packhouse, the BADMC's Packhouse, and exactly what that does. And I want to welcome this morning Malcolm Randall Banfield, right? He's the marketing officer there at the BADMC. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Wendy. Good morning, Barbados.
Now, we spoke about the Packhouse being facilitated through FEED, which is the Farmers Empowerment and Enfranchisement Drive. Now, before I get into all that Packhouse does, today is International Women's Day. So I want to know, how big a role do our female farmers play in putting produce into Packhouse?
Yes, well, happy International Women's Day to you and all your colleagues and all the women listening in Barbados and around the world. Yes, women do play a critical role in agriculture. We have a number of persons who are in the feed program, young women at that too, who are participating in growing produce to feed Barbados.
Okay, well, that's a great and wonderful thing to know, and we hope some more can be encouraged to do it. Now, in terms of where we're at now within the agricultural cycle, what are the main crops that Packhouse rather, has been taking through the feed program?
Yes, we take a lot of ground provisions. Sweet potatoes would be a main staple. Pumpkins, butternut squash, cucumbers, okras, beans, herbs, mainly chive, marjoram, parsley. What else? We also do watermelons and all the different types of melons. We do cantaloupe and honeydew, those kind of stuff. We do there. We also sell onions. When the local onions are in, we sell those as well.
Okay.
So
what
we have
about
a wide
something like
range.
honey? Because I know you all had been encouraging people to get into bee farming and having apiaries. Do we have any people can I come to Packhouse and get local honey?
Not at this time. Not at this time. We don't do honey. The Packhouse is where vegetables produce.
Only.
Primarily only produce.
Okay.
Right? Only things that are grown from a tree or plant that we cater to at the Packhouse. So
Okay.
no honey, but I believe you can contact us at the BADMC and you can get the names of any beekeepers, any apiaries, that we can facilitate getting those persons some sales of their honey.
Now, in terms of getting into the program, if I have 200 people in the feed program, is it likely that Packhouse is able to take some quantity of some vegetable from each and every one?
Yes, as you enter the feed program, when you sign up for, we take up to 40% of what of a particular crop that you would grow, up to 40%, right? Because obviously you would sell the rest on your own, so we don't take all, we would take a portion. So as a person who is in the program, you have that outlet of up to 40% that the BADMC would take and market for you.
Okay. Now,
so, yes,
are there?
So those 200 people, we can't handle all at any given time because it's a small facility. But we schedule. You contact us, and we schedule when you can bring arrangements when we will be able to bring. Obviously, if you have 200 people, 1 acre alone or a quarter of an acre alone can give you thousands of pounds of a particular commodity. So you can't have 50 people bringing the same thing at the same time. So it's a matter of calling and scheduling.
Okay, that's what I was just about to ask. How do you go about ensuring that there's enough? Like, for example, would Mondays be drop-off or selection day? And then I would say to you all, yes, the squash looks favorable, so tomorrow you can deliver your 60 pounds? How do you do it?
Right. So what happens is we have extension officers out in the field that they are monitoring what the farmers are planting from planting to harvest. So based on that, we can use estimated harvest times for each particular crop, and knowing the history of what a crop, how long it takes a crop to come to harvest, and we have the database that we are building that we use to say what particular day is the estimated date of harvest. So then we take that information and we can call a particular farmer, or they can call us, and we would know that these items are ready to be harvested. And we recommend that in most cases when you're harvesting, there's something called post-harvest handling, that you want to harvest in the cool of the day and deliver in the cool of the day to reduce spoilage and extends the shelf life of the produce. So you don't want that you will go and harvest at midday and then you have the product on the back of a hot truck, and all that time it's producing ethylene. From the time you pull it from the vine, remember it's going to start to perish. So you're dealing with perishable stuff. So you want that you deliver at a certain time of the day in certain conditions. If you can have it in the back of your vehicle that is cool, you turn on your AC or whatnot to reduce some of that heat, the heat that will help it to perish. It's not going to perish, depending on what it is. It's not going to perish like in a day or two, but it extends the life of the thing once you practice good post-harvest management.
Okay.
And that extends to us too as well. What we do when we receive it.
Yeah, how you treat it. Now, my final question to you, Randall. How do I get in touch with the Packhouse, either if I want to sell produce to you or buy produce from you?
Yes. So, again, we're catering primarily to the feed farmers and any other registered farmer, and we're encouraging persons to go to the Ministry of Agriculture and register as a farmer to become a farmer once you're growing and selling anything. And also, if you're a caterer, you have a hotel, restaurant, you have a canteen, a bar, anything like that, you can call us at 535-6856 or 59, and you can contact us there at the Packhouse to get to make arrangements to either buy or sell us the produce.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Randall Banfield, the Marketing Officer with BADMC. Kindly extend Happy Women's Day greetings to all of the women working at the Packhouse and the BADMC from us here at Morning Barbados. Do have a great day.
Thank you. Same to you, Randy. Have a great day.
Well, that was Mr. Banfield telling us all about the Packhouse, and we're happy to hear that there are a lot of young female farmers in that feed program. Morning Barbados returns in a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Yes, we're back with Morning Barbados, and this week is Duke Week. And what we're going to be doing today is celebrating some of the young ladies who have passed through the Duke of Edinburgh International Awards program. And they are this morning with me, Miss Samaya Cumberbatch. She is a Bronze and Silver Award recipient. Danielle Doughton. She's also received both bronze and silver. And last but by no means least, Nyla Walton Taylor, also a bronze and silver award recipient of the Duke and Edinburgh's International Award. Good morning to you, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I'm happy to hear that, you know, you have received your awards and you've been doing your duty. So we know that from the silver, we're stepping up to the gold, right?
Definitely.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Now, let's talk a bit about you all as individuals and women in the Duke program. And we're just going to go around. I'll start with Samaya first. How important and critical do you see it being in the lives of young women?
Good morning. So it's Samia.
Oh, Samia, yes.
No problem. Honestly, the program has done a lot for me in terms of my personal development. Definitely has opened my eyes to, you know, persons' different experiences and just meeting and interacting with people from all walks of life and literally forcing us to live together. I would have done my gold award in the Bahamas. So we were actually, that would have been at Cask, and that would have been with persons from all over the region, Bermuda, Trinidad, Belize, just to name a few. And you're literally forced to live with these people who you've never met before and literally function on a day-to-day basis and then go through your adventurous journey, which is, it could be 4 to 5 days of hiking and camping. So
it was good for you.
I think definitely.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Danielle and Nyla? How important do you see this program being for you as women? Because when you hear Duke, you think male, but here you all are being part of the program.
I think it's extremely important. I will go first. Yeah.
Go on.
I think it's extremely important. I think it definitely helps you step out of your comfort zone and help you try new things. You become some person that you never thought you would become. That is true. Because you have to work with so many different people, as Samuel would have said, but it also helps develop you personally because you have to develop courage and be confident in yourself. It's an amazing program, and I definitely encourage persons to be a part of it. Some of my closest friends, came out of
What about you, Danielle?
Well, Samaya and the others have basically summed it up. It helps you personally in terms of being a considered an amazing leader, a team player, realizing that you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, attitudes, and backgrounds. And I implore every and each young girl to get into this program to help with self-confidence.
Where would you say the program has taken you in your life, based on how you were before the program started and where you're at now? How would you say it has built and molded you?
Personally, I would say that I'm more sociable now, and I have been put in a position where I have no other choice than to work with people, and it has been a joy, and it has helped me in the work area, whereby through volunteerism, I've been able to actually have a paying job.
That's
it looks
wonderful.
good on paper. Yes, it looks extremely good on paper. And that's one of the things that employers see most because they have seen, they see that you have endured this journey. It's not easy, and nothing in life worth having is easy. So that is where it has gotten me. It's been an eye-opener.
Okay. Now, Nyla, you said you would encourage any young woman to get involved. Exactly what would you tell them to encourage them on this journey?
I would probably tell them that meeting people, networking is a big part of Duke, and meeting these people and learning more about different cultures aside from your own helps create your worldview, and it helps you in life just in every aspect, from communicating, effective communication, to professional development in your personal and professional life. It's something that you can only get through you develop both individually and as a collective, because together you learning new things. So as teamwork, you become more appreciative of person's differences, and you know how to react more. Conflict resolution.
Now, Samia,
Yeah.
you said that you are on your way to your gold award. How much further do you have to go, and what more is there to be done?
I'm basically finished.
Okay.
I just what's required is you complete the adventurous journey at CASC, which is the regional convention, so to speak, which I have done. I think that was 2018 I did that. And then you complete a year of a skill, a year of volunteer work, and a
And what was
year
your skill, and where did you volunteer?
Okay, so I volunteer a lot. I can't remember which one is on paper for me.
Okay.
For my 1 year.
So you're
My
going to be in
skill, I think, would
Venezuela?
have been
Yoga?
my skill would have been yoga.
Okay.
I've been doing yoga consistently for about 3 years now. I'm up to the advanced level. So that's my skill. I really
Okay.
can't remember what my service was.
Oh my goodness. Well, at least we know you fulfilled it. It probably tired you so much that you've forgotten by now. Now, Danielle, what about you and Nyla, before we go quickly? Have you all also gotten toward your goal stage?
Yes, I have. I've been trying for gold for a while, but I've had a bit of a stop, because when I first tried for gold, I was too young because I was with Samia. And then I tried in 2020 and COVID hit. But I'm going to try again. 2023 is the year, hopefully.
Yes, 2022 will be your breakthrough year, and it will be for you as well, Danielle. Now, I want to thank you, young ladies, very much. You've shown that you've been bolstered in terms of your confidence, your abilities, your skills, and your interactions with others. Because listening to Danielle, she was quite reserved before, but not now again. Huh? So here's thanks to the Duke International Award Scheme. I wish you all the best as you go forward toward your gold awards, and I wish you much success. And happy International Women's Day once again.
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day.
To you.
Young women striding forward. That's what it's all about, preparing our women for the future. Morning Barbados. We'll be back.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And it's time for the doctor on the line. We're looking at pediatric care this morning, and we welcome Dr. Gillian Birchwood. Good morning and happy International Women's Day to you.
Good morning, Wendy, and good morning to all of Barbados. Happy International Women's Day indeed.
Yes. Now, I wanted to see you much earlier when Face-to-Face resumed for this particular topic. We're talking about puberty, a taboo topic. Those first formers now going in are finding themselves in some awkward positions, not being sure what to do, how to do, why is this happening? Now, let's discuss puberty. What is it?
Puberty, as you said, it's such a taboo topic. It's something that people don't want to talk about, they don't want to think about in their children. And, you know, it really makes people squirm. But, you know, what is puberty? So as you said, you know, puberty is basically the transition when a child's body transitions into an adult body. We're not talking about the mind here because we know it takes a little longer for the mind to catch up. But basically, it is a transition when a child has a functional adult body that is actually capable of reproduction. So that's really what it is.
Okay, and there's stages to puberty.
Yes, so there are different stages to puberty, and it's different obviously for boys compared to girls. So in girls, the earliest stage of puberty, you really notice initially that there may be breast development. And it can start in little girls as young as 7 and 8 years old, which is usually very traumatizing for parents because they can't believe their little one is having this happen to them already. Especially very traumatizing for dads, but it does start as early as 7 and 8. And then after you see the different stages of breast development, then you start seeing hair start sprouting in different places, pubic hair, underarm hair, and you see the breast development continue through different stages. So there's a little bud at first, and then it becomes fuller. In boys, on the other hand, the first stage is not noticeable. It is actually increase in testicular size, which no one is going to notice because nobody's looking there all the time. And then you start getting an increase in penile length, and you also have hair sprouting all over the place, you know, underarms and in the pubic area for boys as well. And the other change of puberty that we will see is that your formerly sweet-smelling child suddenly smells like they've been working in the sun all day, and you wonder what's happening. So that's something that parents usually notice quite early on.
Yeah, that's the part that makes parents scream most because you're like, what have you been doing type of thing.
Exactly.
No, some parents are afraid to have that conversation, but what is an advisable timeline, age with which to start it? Do we wait till we see the first or second sign of puberty development, or do we try to have it, say, maybe when they're in class 3?
You know, that's a great question, Wendy. And really, the talking about puberty should start very early on. You know, children from a very young age are curious about their bodies. They're curious about your bodies. Any parent of a toddler knows that toddlers will follow you everywhere and be pointing and asking questions. So you start by answering questions about your body and their bodies very honestly, but in an age-appropriate manner. So, you know, when a very young child says, where do babies come from? You can answer and say, babies come from mommy's body. You know, that may be suitable for a toddler. But as they get older and they want more detailed answers, then you need to give them more detailed answers. And the thing is that you need to not be terrified of this conversation. Don't wait until the changes of puberty are, you know, on the child already, because they will be aware that changes are happening and they may be a little bit frightened about it. So you need to start the conversation from very early. You need to make it just as clear as possible that it is a normal change that their bodies will go through, that it isn't something to be ashamed of. Use the correct names for the body parts. I can tell you I've heard so many funny names for private parts. I could, you know, really shut down the station today by telling you all of them. Yes, you would,
and we don't want that.
I didn't think you would.
But then, Dr. Birchwood, there's the other end. There are parents who are willing to engage children in this discussion, but there are some children who are quite resistant to it. And even the mention of things told in the most mild of terms and the most decent way, they still become very closed and, don't want to have that discussion at all.
You're so right. Don't force the conversation on children before they're ready. But this is why it's so important to normalize talking about the changes your bodies will go through, from very young. Because if it becomes something you've never spoken about, and then all of a sudden one day you say, sit down, we're going to have the talk, then really and truly becomes something that's very strange for the children and, frightening. So don't force the conversation. They don't want to talk about it. Trust me, they do want to read about it. So you can get a good book, that is child-friendly, that explains everything, and one that's consistent with the values your family has, and leave that book lying around. Believe you me, it will be required reading by that child, and they'll still get the information.
What about coping mechanisms for them? What can we as parents do to help them cope with what they're going through?
The first thing we can do is make sure they know it's normal, it's expected, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And that message cannot come just once. It has to be throughout their entire childhood so that they can know and anticipate. Many of us have grown up in households where it's so taboo that it was really a frightening topic. But let them know it's normal over and over again. Very important.
Okay, what about any abnormal signs that might suggest that puberty for a little boy or a little girl isn't actually going the way it should?
Yes. So very occasionally, a child will either show signs of puberty that's occurring too early or puberty that's occurring too late. And in both instances, for the child and for the family, it can be quite distressing. So if we have a little girl who's having signs of puberty starting before the age of 7, that would definitely be very unusual, and the parents should certainly seek medical advice. In a little boy, if they're having puberty before the age of 8, that's also very unusual for a little boy. And late puberty would be in a girl if she has not shown any signs of breast development whatsoever at the age of 13, or she hasn't had her period by the time she's 15 years old. And in a little boy, if we have not seen any signs of testicular growth by the time he is about 13 to 14 years old, that would be very unusual.
Okay.
So too early and too late are both of concern.
Now, a member of our online audience has just raised the issue of embarrassment. She says even being taught the issue at school is something which he ran away from. How can we as parents deal with that?
Yes, with the embarrassment. I mean, when children are about to go through puberty, or when they are going through puberty, they're often teenagers, and it's such an awkward time. And it depending on how you heard about it growing up, they'll be very aware that it's a squeamish topic. So again, for parents at home, if you feel squeamish about it, don't shy away from talking about it. Fake it till you make it. Be as nonchalant as you can. Make sure that it isn't strange. And the way to overcome embarrassment is really to keep talking about it. Anytime you have the opportunity, you don't have to have one big long talk, but lots of small talks will eventually break through that barrier of embarrassment. When they see that you are not embarrassed, you become a safe space for them to come and ask those embarrassing and strange questions.
And
Often
if they don't
feel
want
more
to come to
comfortable talking
you,
to their peers.
right, that's what I was
Yes.
going to ask. If they don't want to talk
Yes.
to you and there's an auntie or an uncle that they will have conversations with, should I entertain and engage that?
Absolutely. The cool uncle, the cool auntie, or just another relative or trusted friend that they feel comfortable around. I usually tell parents I don't recommend for you to come to the doctor for your child to have the talk. It needs to be with someone who's close to them. Yes, I say absolutely not. That's your job as parents. Yes.
Yes.
So we don't encourage them to come to the doctor for that.
Yes, and we have to take up our roles as parents. We will come to the doctor if we find any abnormalities. Dr. Birchwood,
Correct.
I want to thank you very much for having that particular conversation. It's not, as we said, it can be very taboo. And I find sometimes too, like individuals who might say, well, they're Christian or what have you, they don't necessarily know how to couch the language, or they think that by saying it's too bad. Well, I want to thank you. Happy International Women's Day again. And we had Dr. Gillian Birchwood, or pediatrician and neonatologist at the QEH. That's Morning Barbados. We will be back after the break, and we're going to be talking about homes. We also have some of our friends from overseas tuning in, the Cayman Islands, the UK. Thank you for watching Morning Barbados, and we are happy to have you here. Morning Barbados will be back. It's time to talk real estate, and I want to welcome Sharita Odell. She is a real estate agent on IG at Agent Sharita. Good morning to you. Now, first off, let you know, outside of wishing you happy International Women's Day, that a female viewer was very thrilled about that security session, and she says because of you, she has now done a lot of things with her home that she never imagined. So,
fantastic.
yes.
Good to hear.
Now, we're talking about cosmetically protecting the home, and we're not talking about the cosmetics you and I wear and use. So tell me what we're dealing with.
All right. So essentially, we do approach it the same way. We put sunscreen on our faces, sunblock, that type of thing. In terms of our property, yes, we want to make them look sexy and trendy and fashionable. But at the same time, we are applying things to their surfaces to help them last through years and years. So very often we either talk paint or plastering, and we often have to make that choice. Do I paint my house, or do I kind of trouble it with some plaster? Well, hopefully this will help you make that decision. So when you kind of plaster your house, we have, in Jamaica, they call it trowel-on. Here we have trowel text, trowel plastic, different names. That's almost like liquid paint concrete. When you put it on, it is there for a very long time. So if you want something nice and sturdy that can withstand the elements, you may consider that type of technique. However, if you have an even surface, it has to be even, then you can go the direction of paint. And the beauty of paint, if you're like Pearson, who was talking about transforming his house, like if it didn't cost much at all, you might want to change up your colors and so forth every 2 to 3 years. Paint gives you that flexibility.
Okay, well, it's good to know you have that, but there's always still a price point. Now, in terms of putting a protective coating on my house, you sometimes see people with the houses finished built and they just leave the concrete. Now, does putting some form of plaster or paint on it impact on the value of my home?
Oh, definitely, definitely. There was once a school of thought, I don't know how true, that the land tax value used to remain lower when the house was unpainted, and for that reason, a lot of Bajans used to keep them in their concrete form. I don't know. But think about it. When you slap on a beautiful color, in the eyes of a prospective purchaser, wow, you see potential, you see hope, you see retreat. Color does a lot. So it definitely does add to the value of your property. Interior and exterior lifts it.
Now, when we're talking about colors, should we be looking at the kind of spaces we're working with to determine what kind of color we should have? Should we look at where the house is located? Like, am I close to the sea? Do I get a lot of sun as it rises in the east? Should all of those elements factor in us making that choice?
Now, the beauty of color, you can get color in all types of paint. Now, I'm not a paint specialist. This is where you go down to your hardware store and you have a serious discussion. But I can tell you for a fact, if you are out by the sea, talk to them about which type of paint is hardier for dealing with surfaces where you can have nails rusting and that type of thing, or where the wind is blowing harsher and you don't want it to strip over time. So your paint specialist will definitely guide you on that. One thing I love about the Caribbean and Barbados in particular, we are a colorful people. I have traveled to some countries where established by the government. One country I remember, I was depressed. They could not paint their properties any other color than off-white. Imagine going to I'm about to cry as I'm talking about this. Imagine going to a country and seeing every building in off-white. Barbados, you don't know what we have with all these colors. So continue to go crazy with it.
Because at least when you have color, you can tell the people, oh, my house is the pink one on the corner with the green trim or whatever. So you know what you're looking for, you know exactly what it is you're looking for. Now, whilst we love the vibrancy of color and so on, are there colors that I should avoid altogether in painting a house? Especially if, say, maybe I'm thinking about selling it within, say, a 5 or 6 year period because I'll be relocating or getting married or something of that sort.
All right. So if ever you're thinking sale as front of mind, keep it neutral. Even if you have to redo some accent walls and so forth, keep it neutral because someone has to see themselves in that space and they have to be able to dial up the color or dial down the color in their head. Now, colors you absolutely don't want in your house, as sexy as you think red is, for the love of God, please don't paint the interior in red.
How about the door?
Red reminds the door,
How about the door? Because red doors are trendy.
Yes, I can cope emotionally with that, Wendy. The door in red is fine. It has a nice pop. But think about it. When you see red, listen to the term itself. You get angry.
It's
rage. Off that. Why are you going to have red in your house? Another color, absolutely not to have. Please, please, for the love of God. No brown, especially in the living room. Don't do it. What does brown remind you of? And we have our silence, moment of silence.
Of course we do.
No brown. No browns, please.
Well, it's a color. People like it as a trim though, especially in a veranda type setting. People tend to like to trim their handrails and so on in brown.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Keep it on the minor scale, but not the takeover scale of an entire living room in brown. You will get people depressed. They will not want to visit you. Don't do it.
Well, what are the other colors? What about black?
Black, that's a no-no unless it's a trim, to be honest with you. Another one that might surprise you, although whites are great in kitchens to help keep it nice and modern and fresh, and people are using them more often in bathrooms, once again, after a while, it will get old in a bathroom. A bathroom is one of the grossest places in a house. It will pick up any sort of, discoloration easily. Do you really want white in the bathroom? Also, since more people are working at home than ever before, people think, let me put a white in a home office. No, siree. Glare, the reflection.
Yes.
It's like being in a loony bin without you realizing you're in there getting depressed because it feels very boxy, very closed in. And, we're dealing with a lot of eye strain nowadays. That will actually add to it, especially if it has a sheen. And a sheen means that it helps reflect the light. So be careful with your whites. Use it sparingly. sparingly.
So therefore, for my office, I should look at a matte color and nothing that's too bright and reflecting too much light.
Correct. And if you use a white, the beauty of white, there's so many different shades. Do not use the most sterile white. Don't do it. Don't do it. Get a white that has like a little almond, a little coral, a little tint of something in it.
All right. Well, Sharita, we want to thank you this morning for talking to us about cosmetically protecting our homes. And you would have heard what colors are right and what colors are wrong. Again, happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. When Morning Barbados returns, we'll be talking fitness.
Parents are concerned about how to best protect their children from the COVID-19 virus as they head back to school. The Pfizer vaccine is considered a safe option for children ages 12 through 18. Children who are vaccinated are more protected if they are exposed to the virus. Even after children are vaccinated, they still have to wear masks, physical distance, wash their hands, and use hand sanitizer. Consult your family doctor or pediatrician and make the right choice to protect your children and their classmates from COVID-19.
Get your first dose, take the second. Get your first dose, take the second. Before thing is COVID-19. So go there, get your vaccine. Listen, in Barbados be blessed. Not other countries that got no access. No, to the resources we acquire. So we shouldn't let them expire. You might get headache or cold sweats or fever or dizziness, but these side effects temporary. Your body fighting ain't necessary. You running from a lady, that's it. You running from a lady, that's it. It can be easy on a ventilator. COVID-19 ain't come to play ya. So get your first dose, take the second. Get your first dose, take the second. And spread the word in your community. Barbados need herd immunity. Understand? Get your first dose, take the second. Get your first dose, take the second. Before thing gets COVID-19. So go there, get your vaccine. Yeah.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Task Force for Global Health.
And we're back. It's time to talk fitness. I'm here with Thorne and Danielle Gill. I want to welcome them. We're talking fitness, and because we're dealing with International Women's Day, we're going to have another female in the house in Danielle. And as you can see, Danielle goes to the gym much more often than I do. So tell me, what are we dealing with exactly?
One of these kill me every time. Look, today we're talking about, so first of all, happy International Women's Day. We got to understand that women are the backbone of our society. Without you, we would not be here, and we are ever thankful.
I'm happy you are.
Yeah. So we're just generally talking about the majority of the female perspective when it comes to lifting and your relationship with lifting. So most of the time, a lot of females will come in and say, well, I want to come into the gym, but I only want to work like my legs and my glutes and my calves. I don't want to do no arms right now. I want the big arms. And so we're about changing that perception. It doesn't happen like that.
So
you're not gonna curl a dumbbell 2 times a day and look like me when you're done. Like, it doesn't happen. So we can go straight to a video of Danielle going through a lift, really quick. The team in the back got me. We can switch it on like no.
Or you could probably use me as the weight.
Here we go. Danielle, you gotta tell the people how much weight this is right now.
I think this was 260.
260.
Yeah.
Hey.
And you weigh how much?
I weigh 135 pounds.
Okie dokie.
So we can start by asking Niall. So what is your relationship with lifting? Like, where did you start? Like, just give us the full spiel.
I started lifting when I moved to Dublin to study interior design. I had to stop all sports because they don't play like the sports that I used to do. And yeah, I went from there. I fell in love with lifting. And I don't look like I lift.
No, you don't.
But I love it.
Right, and that's another major fact. So I find when most females look at the athletes who are obviously bigger or competing in bodybuilding, you guys need to first understand these are elite athletes.
Okay.
Their training and their diet is geared towards a specific result so that they can look this way for competition. Yeah. So if you're your average gym goer and you're trying to improve because that's what fitness is about, improving your overall lifestyle and wellness and that and just genuinely how you feel.
Okay.
And you explain that to your trainer, who is obviously aware of that, then you're not gonna look like me. It just can't happen just like that overnight.
But how do we get past this psyche that if women are into heavy weights and train 4 days a week type of thing, I'm no longer gonna be feminine. I'm gonna be looking like a man.
So first of all, the mindset needs to be, your status quo needs to be, it's not that I'm gonna look like a man, but I am going to be stronger. That's what it's about. Daniel is like a man, not a man. I am going to be stronger. Most female clients come to me, they hardly have any upper body strength. There are those big, shout out to Shauna on the inside. A calisthenic workout partner of mine, she killed it last week. Like she actually beat me in a couple things. You know, I had to go back.
I see you doing that on my head grows.
I had to go back. I was like, all right, you got me, Shauna. But I was saying, your approach to it has to be completely different. Like I said, you have to be thinking about getting stronger and improving your overall, your life overall. So like I said, I do meet some clients who come to me not able to do push-ups, not able to do curls or anything like that. And you don't, my approach to fitness is that you don't know what kind of situation is going to happen in life, which is why I fuse the strength with the functional. You don't know when you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to pull yourself from somewhere, push yourself away from somewhere, like if you fall on anything like that. You know what I mean?
That's very interesting, especially in a time of disasters
Correct.
and the disaster zone that we're actually in. So you might find yourself under the rubble of a house and thinking that it's impossible for me to get from here. But if I study what I've been doing in the gym, I might actually know how I can anchor my body and get myself free.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that you say that, because it goes beyond just lifting weights. And if you do have a good print training program, it will help you to improve your mind and muscle connection, especially if just understanding, okay, well, let's say, like you say, you've fallen and you're on your back and there's something you need to get off of you. What kind of position is that? That's a bench press, right? So you can maybe if it's like 100 pounds or something like that, and you're lucky enough, maybe you can push it up your chest, or maybe you can save yourself a little more time until the emergency team gets there.
Exactly.
All right. So, guys, Danielle, a quick question. So wait, Wendy, after this,
I actually want to find out from her, because she said she started it abroad, but you've come back home and you're still lifting. What is your main objective in lifting? Are you into competitive sports? Are you thinking about being in weightlifting competitions? What's your motivation?
My motivation is just seeing the results, honestly. Like, I love how I look. I love how I'm looking. When I lift, I actually gain more weight. I'm actually a very, very small person outside of the gym. So yeah, it makes me feel good about myself. It makes me love myself even more. It makes me comfortable with myself. It makes me confident.
Okay, and I guess too, it also helps in your profession, because you said you're into interior design.
Yes, please.
So therefore, when you have that stuff to move about and bring in, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what are some of the times, maybe, that it might not be most advisable for a woman to lift, or with what conditions?
So that's a very, very specific question. Like,
Yeah.
And I have as we go on in the world and things begin to improve and we get more technology and we do understand more about the body, things are constantly changing. So let's say 20, 40 years, 30 years ago, you would not catch a woman who is pregnant in the gym at all. And that fact is changing now. Barring any limiting factors that you may have, as long as you've seen your doctor and you've been cleared for physical activity, then you are absolutely fine. So the person who would be able to tell you that is your medical physician.
Okay.
So you go to them, you say if you have like sciatica, if you have PCOS, if you have any of those
Female conditions,
these female
yes.
conditions are very specific. You go to your doctor and you say, hey, well, I do want to get into lifting, I do want to lift some weights and that kind of stuff. And then they go, okay, well, maybe we start here. Maybe we start from the lower end. And I find people need to do that more.
Okay.
You need to connect, have your trainer connect more with your physio or your doctor so we can both be on the same page.
Have the same plan.
Yep,
same
correct.
game plan.
So when you get
now
into
we're
that-
running out of time. I'm ready. We're running out of time. So Danielle, on this International Women's Day, I want you to give our viewers some motivation about what they can do to get their bodies right.
What I would say is that just do it. You're thinking about if you're going to look like a man, you're thinking about if you're going to look like this, you're thinking about if you're not going to be confident enough, but like just do it. Like the day that you actually get up, wake up and go do it, you'll realize that waiting didn't mean anything. You'll realize that you were actually okay and it will be okay, and once you continue to do it, you'll be fine and you'll see the results.
Exactly.
Good.
100%.
So that's what we are all looking forward to, a good result. Torn, Danielle, I want to thank you all for coming. We were talking about lifting, but remember, it's important to find out what your physical and medical limitations might be first before you attempt anything too strenuous. I want to thank you for tuning in to Morning Barbados today. And again, to all of our women around the world, happy International Women's Day. I'm Wendy Bird.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning.